So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land upon which we work and live. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. So welcome everyone to our lunchbox session, Compliance Without Connection, Keeping Safety and Training on Track. We are recording this session and you will receive it 48 hours afterwards. If anyone needs a certificate of attendance, you will also receive that too. So today we're exploring how safety and training leaders keep compliance on track, even offline, and how modern tools make it easier to stay safe, skilled and efficient. We're joined by three fantastic panel members. Which I'm really pleased to say. Starting off with Nelson Hearn, just going to add Nelson to the stage. Hi, Nelson.
Hey, Helen.
So Nelson is the Zero Harm Manager at Access Mining. Nelson is a safety and training specialist with over a decade in mining, leading zero harm and compliance initiatives across Australian sites. Welcome, Nelson. Next up, we have Nigel. So welcome, Nigel.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Nigel is an adult education and compliance expert with 20 plus years in defence and mining, pioneering blended learning in high-risk environments. And we also have the wonderful Gabby, just adding Gabby to the stage. Multiple clicks here. So Gabby is a leading consultant in the education sector and a leader in the vet space as she supports enterprise RTOs nationally, driving collaboration and compliance innovation across safety critical and regulated industries. Welcome, everybody. So here is what we're going to discuss today. In our roadmap. So just to give us a bit of context, we're going to look at what compliance means in all of these panel members' worlds, and what it was like before they went digital, why they made that change, what changed, how they're actually managing that remote and offline piece of work, what gives them that audit confidence, and how they manage that change management at the start as well. And ultimately what the future holds. So I think we've just about got quite a few people watching us now. What we'd like to do is just start off with a bit of an interactive piece. So if you could join the Slido and take part in the first poll just to see how everybody's feeling. And that first question is, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to training and compliance on site and in the field? If you just join via that QR code, you should be able to take part. We'll see if we get anybody taking part.
It's always the risk.
It's always the risk. That's why we put it in up front, see if people are listening. Here we go. Oh, others interesting. Definitely the paper theme. I was expecting that to be pretty high up there. I know it's often tricky getting in on these Slidos, so it's really good that a couple of people have managed to get in there so far. I went to a conference, Gabby was there on the last week, and a few Slidos just went completely wrong. But it's always good just to get a bit of a taster as to how people are feeling. So now it's time just to delve in with our panel members now. So to start off, I was just wondering what you actually need to adhere to stay compliant in your world, whether that's regulatory requirements, internal standards, or industry expectations. Nelson, if we could start with you.
Sure. So I work in the underground metalliferous space. Basically, what we do is we dig holes, take out the rocks in them that have got metals in them, send them to the surface and get processed. So we're not RTO and we're not subject to the same compliance requirements as an RTO. So we've got a little bit more freedom there. It's predominantly WHS legislation that governs us, both general legislation and mining-specific WHS legislation. So we've got to provide information, training and instruction to our employees. And there's a lot of variety and versatility as to how we do that. And many companies go about that in different ways. And then we need to assess competence as well, make sure that people are competent for the tasks that they're conducting. So they've got the knowledge and skills, and they can acquire that through training, qualification or experience. So that's the regulatory expectations for us there. But as far as internal and industry and client expectations, for us, simplicity is the key. In that contracting space, we don't have a huge team of administrators to enroll people, schedule training, enter data, things like that. For us, at a site level, it's entirely managed by underground trainer assessors. So simplicity is key in that. Also, transparency. Transparency is hugely valuable, both for our learners, our employees, and for their supervisors. So we need to be transparent and clear on who's competent for what tasks you can do independently, what tasks you can't do independently, what tasks you can do under supervision. And then as well, for any supervisors scheduling tasks, they need to be able to obtain that information rapidly as well. So that's our compliance requirements.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot and a lot of things competing there as well. Nigel, please can you explain a bit about the compliance standards you have to adhere to?
Pretty much everything Nelson just said. So, kind of a little bit different though. Nelson works in the underground space. The underground space to me makes me blood run cold and freeze in fear. So I prefer to stay in the open cut environment. But it is the same as Nelson. So we've got our WHS requirements from a state and federal standpoint, plus the mines and petroleum industry requirements for WHS there as well, and the Order 34, which is directly from the resource regulator. So there are, I think the last I checked, probably about 4 or 5 different legislation that we're now under. Coming from an RTO standpoint, an RTO background, 15 years managing one there. I thought I'd never say this, but I actually think the RTO was easier than trying to balance the different state and federal altogether. The same challenges Nelson did as well. Balancing your skills inside the mine sites, supervisors understanding who's got what skills, and having that information easily accessible to them, so they're not trying to look stuff up. But they've got the stuff easily at their fingertips. That's probably one of the biggest dangers I think we've got is people potentially being asked to do things that they may not necessarily hold the skills for, or worse, they hold the skills for, but they haven't been authorised on our site for it. So, potentially they can swing a digger, but they've never been authorised by us. But in their mind, they can. So if they were asked to, potentially there's that potential they could actually go do it unauthorised. So, making supervisors really, really understand the requirements, from an industry standpoint, from a safety standpoint, and them having the tools to actually make those decisions when I finally decide to go home at night.
Yeah. And how many people are there that you're having to ensure have this knowledge?
So I've got 2 ACEs. We're only a very small mine, certainly on the smallest I know of. So I've only got 2 ACEs and 2 mine supervisors that need to have access to information. And we've got a staff of 40 operators out there. So it's not that big a challenge for us because we're small, but certainly still can be challenging at times.
Yeah, of course. And Gabby, how about you? What you can tell us a bit about the RTO side of things?
Yeah, I'll talk about enterprise RTO. So pretty much everything both Nelson and Nigel have said. So whichever environment you're in, you've got the regulator standards. So it's either ASC/TAC or VRQA, depending on where you're based and where you're trading. And then along with that, any legislation that applies to the site that you're working on. So you guys have just mentioned the mining legislation. If it's retail, then there's retail legislation. There's safety standards. There's all sorts of things. So all of those need to be met. So it's the whatever you need for the workplace to trade, plus the standards to be an RTO. And I think something that Nelson said that's really important is transparency, and along with that for me is expediency. So in the good old days when everything was paper, it might take 6 months before an assessment that's been done actually arrives at the RTO to be processed. So that's probably one of the major pain points of dealing the old way as well. So compliance is met by getting those things in quickly and processing and knowing where your staff are at.
Yeah, before it goes out of date. Because that actually leads us into before actually using Cloud Assess, Nigel. What did managing training and compliance look like to you?
Horrible. So whether it was with my previous employer with the RTO or here, it's just mountains and mountains of paperwork. I had 18 sites around Australia underneath my old RTO, and I've only got one site here, but the amount of paperwork that just builds up, and to Gabby's point, timing, like the time it takes for an assessor to go through, do all the assessments, get all the evidence, get it into the system, get it registered, training administrators getting that stuff onto an LMS somewhere and then pushing that stuff back out. It would take literally weeks, if not a couple of months with some of those sites, especially the ones that were remote, to get the information in. And it becomes a compliance nightmare. I remember having folders on my desk if I'd assessed a course, and they could be sitting there for weeks while you're trying to balance the next course and the next course and the next course, and trying to get back assignments or third-party reports, waiting for those to come through, and all those sorts of things, just slowing the system down to try and keep track of that. When you've got students rotating through day in, day out, it becomes an absolute compliance nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Nelson?
I
know you are in a different situation in that I know you use Cloud Assess where you are from day one. But was there a particular reason why you did that?
Few reasons why we did that, and the similar experience to Nigel, that we're faced with those challenges that people are entering hundreds and hundreds of competencies every week, and it's inevitable that mistakes are going to occur. You can't process that amount of content without making a mistake. But started with a new organization, Access Mining, and we went digital from the word go. So that made life a lot easier. Why? We're a business focused on sustainability. So as soon as I say sustainability, people think of the environment, but it's not just that for us. Sustainable clients, sustainable people. And one of the ways we get sustainability within the people is give them a good training experience. And for clients, it's to remove wastage. And that can be wastage, time, processes, paper, whatever it is. So the good bit was we had an experienced management team. We'd worked in the industry for decades, and we wanted to avoid those mistakes that we'd all too often made in previous lives and that are still made across the industry in many regards. So it was good to start with a fresh slate and be able to do this from day one. And I guess the benefits of digital, we can host interactive content, so SCORM files. We can natively generate assessments within Cloud Assess. So we have a database that manages the training, and then an API that goes to a user interface that then that individuals interact with. And also we can generate that content ourselves. I didn't have to go to a third party to generate this digital content that we'd have to engage in order to train it or change it or anything like that. So the ability to do all that natively within Cloud Assess was one of the huge benefits for us, and that's why we went digital from day one.
That's awesome. That's such a good success story. And Gabby, are there any kind of stories that you've got of clients that you've seen that haven't gone digital yet and some of the struggles that they're seeing?
Yeah, look, I think the tyranny of distance is part of it. So people who don't go digital have to get the paper to the places where the assessments are occurring, which is often very difficult. Or assessors are absolutely excellent at storing old versions of things on their desktop, and they just print them off. So you run into a problem there where old resources are being used. So I think the tyranny of distance and record keeping, version control, all of those things really push people to go sort of towards the direct route. I had horror stories of people with old versions of documents that would take months and months to come through. So, and then when they do come through, the RTO has to decide how to use that in terms of how it fits in with a new assessment that's been issued. So it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just going sort of alongside that in terms of why people would make that change. I know, Nigel, you mentioned to me that during COVID, it sort of accelerated a bit of a change for you in your delivery method. Can you give us a bit of an overview of that?
Yeah, I should take a few Xanax. I think COVID was a learning experience for a lot of people in the education space. As I said, at the time I was managing 18 different training sites, which we would hop on a plane and we'd go to and we'd do what we need to do and we'd come back home again and all was well and good. It's all well and good when you can actually travel outside your house for 2 years. So we were forced down. We weren't forced down the line, but I suppose I would let the ATO wait about 6 months to see what was happening before we made any business decisions. And about in that 6 months, we could see it was going to be a longer haul than what everyone sort of expected. So we had to make the decision to go down the line of e-learning. So to flip a school that is traditional, face-to-face learning, and it had always been, and take those courses and turn them into something that's online, that's interactive, that the students want to engage with, was a massive learning curve, a massive investment, and a massive challenge, because a lot of our students were mature age students as well. They didn't necessarily like the idea of going to online learning. So we had to sort of bring them in on the journey as well and talk them through it. Change management on the run is very, very hard to do. But with sort of the position we're sort of thrown into, if they've had more time again, I probably would have staged it a bit differently and probably made it a bit smoother than what it was. But even the instructors, like, we had to all upskill for e-learn, to how to develop e-learning. Like we'd never done it. We were all chalk and talk type instructors. So we had to learn new systems. We had to learn new programs. We had to learn how to develop e-learning. We had to develop interactions. We had to develop gaming, how to gamification. So from the staff standpoint, it's actually a huge learning curve and a huge challenge, but also a very rewarding one. The knowledge they gained out of that was massive. But certainly bringing everyone on that ride was very difficult, very challenging. In the end, ultimately successful, but it took a long time to sort of get down that road.
Yeah, I can imagine. Fortunately, in my role, everything's pretty much online, so it's a little bit easier for the things I do. But I was also curious, because I know where you're working now, you actually changed how they were actually managing their training and assessment process, because they were heavily on paper. How did you go about making that change, Nigel?
Quickly. So, I came out of an RTO, which I'd taken from paper-based into the 21st century. Left that world, came into mining, ironically, to get away from training, and found myself taking on their training role almost within day one. Much to Gabby's point before, I hopped on the computer systems. I'm finding multiple versions of assessments. I'm finding multiple versions of training matrix. And I think I took the decision after the first 2 hours to ring Alex and go, help. We need help. And brought Cloud Assess in pretty well straight away. It was a fairly quick turnaround. The mind didn't argue with me at all, which was good. I talked to the GM. He knew my background, trusted me to make the right decisions. And we brought that in relatively quickly, which was good. Obviously, great. I had all the experience with Cloud Assess with the RTO, made the transition, pretty quickly. I knew how to upload it. The onboarding was really fairly quick, because I didn't have to go through all the normal Cloud Assess training. But the mind is much better for it. We had the auditor or the regulator come in about 2 months later to do a regulator audit, and they left with actually holding the mine site in praise, just simply the fact of Cloud Assess being in place and the changes we brought in to manage that compliance side of the training stuff. So that was exceptionally successful.
That's fantastic. And Nelson, how was it for you sort of in that startup phase, getting everybody on board and getting into using digital straight away?
Similar to Nigel, I think everybody's so sick of the old paper-based way of doing it, the inefficiencies that are associated with it. So as long as you're providing a service that legitimately generates value, and I don't mean monetary value, I mean a system that fosters learning and competency and employee progress and learning new skills, moving from a trainee to competent proficient, and then providing supervisors with a workforce that are multi-skilled. If you can make that process more simplistic, more efficient, and generate a better result, any of the operational teams are on board with it.
That's awesome. That's so good. And so just looking through at sort of the things that changed the most, if you think back to before Cloud Assess, what would you say is the biggest difference in some of the organizations you've worked with, Gabby, now that they're using Cloud Assess?
I think there's been quite a few. So probably COVID was the catalyst for a lot of people to move digital, and to both points that Nigel and Nelson made, like people were actually really happy to accept the change because it did make their lives easier in many ways. So from an RTO perspective, it made the issuance of assessments, tracking assessments, the verification of assessments once they're done in the system. So that whole admin side of things was greatly reduced. Like, you know, full-time equivalents were able to be doing other things. It also frees up trainers and assessors a lot because they were, especially remotely, the trainer and assessor doesn't have somebody they can hand things to and say, okay, well, if you could deal with these, that'd be great for me. So they were the ones who were having to often like receive, print, bundle up, post, mark manually. So the trainer and assessor time is more able to be spent focusing on training and assessing than doing paperwork. So just from those two things alone, remarkable achievements in efficiency. And then in terms of recalling information and being able to download information as required, whether it be a regulator, whether it be for reporting, all those saw vast increases in efficiencies.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also when it comes to compliance, I know we had a little conversation about validation. Do you have any examples of how using a system like Cloud Assess would be good for that?
It can be good. It depends on the quality of comments in assessments, I think. So generally when you're doing a post-assessment validation, you randomize the amount of assessments you're going to be using. So using Cloud Assess makes it very easy to say, okay, I'm going to do 43 assessments, and you can just target the ones you went, download them, and then review them as a group. It also means your validation panel doesn't need to be present in the room because everybody can have a copy and you can do it online. So it streamlines that process a lot rather than having to pull out files. There is one comment that you need comments, or you need points of differentiation in your assessment. So the ability to take photos or little videos of people doing things to use towards your evidence, keeping those in Cloud Assess really helps with that validation process.
Absolutely. Nelson, I think that's something that you're doing at the moment at Access Mining. Is that right?
Yeah, very much been driven by the trainer assessors. They hate writing comments, taking notes, things like that. It's not their skill set. Their skill sets, either trades personnel or underground operators, doing those administrative type tasks they don't like. So instead of long-winded notes, this person, this location, this item of machinery, these ground conditions, this task was being completed, all of those details can be captured with one photo or a quick video. Things like verifying individuals can conduct brake tests. There's a great level of certainty there that we've assessed that content accurately when there's a video there of an individual doing a brake test. So, yeah, it's promoted quite well by the trainer assessors using Cloud Assess.
That's awesome. How about you, Nigel, for collecting evidence and that sort of thing? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, we actually use the video for all our operators. So their final assessments will actually use a short video. It could be digger drivers loading trucks, could be a dozer, doing whatever. So we use those short videos, much the same as Nelson was saying. Just, they say a picture says 1,000 words. Why not use it?
Absolutely, I love that. So moving into, I guess, one of the biggest topics that this webinar will cover, and that is remote and offline training and assessing. And in your industries in particular, you're often working in that way without reliable connectivity. How do you manage the training and assessment when you're offline or out of range? Nelson, if we can start with you.
Sure. So when we were investigating options for software, that was one of our non-negotiables. We work underground. There's very few mines that have a reliable Wi-Fi network throughout their entire underground operation. So the ability to conduct assessment and training offline was non-negotiable for us. How it looks within the business, I guess two aspects of it. So our learners, as part of the training process for each practical competency, learners have a checklist of skills they need to acquire, and they do this under the guidance of an experienced operator. They go down, learn a task, supervised by someone who knows how to do the task. As part of this learning and training, they go through a checklist of skills they need to acquire. Once I can do this, I tick this box. Once I can do this, I tick this box. Once they've acquired all those skills, they believe they've acquired all those skills, they check the document back in, submit it, and it comes to a trainer assessor's in tray that has completed all the self-assessment items, ready to do whatever competency. So that's how it works for the learners. They can access that checklist content while they're underground, and they know what they have to learn before they're ready for assessment. For the trainer assessors, that's where the workflow changes. It pops in their to-do list, and they use the offline capacity as well to schedule tasks. So they meet with the supervisors, superintendents, they schedule tasks for the week, and they know they're going to complete these assessments offline. So they check out all these assessments ahead of time, and they essentially use those checked out assessments as their to-do list for the week. That's their schedule. They go through, conduct these assessments. As they're completed, they check them back in, and that's instantly, processed by the software and then uploaded live into the matrix. And they've got the ability there to check out additional documents that could be completed as ad hoc. There's always breakdowns, operational changes, absenteeism. They've got these documents pre-checked out. They don't have to go from underground back up to the surface, grab a piece of paper, head back down underground to do an assessment. They've got them all there at their hand, so they can just jump on that, open up that assessment, go and do it on an ad hoc basis, and then again process it when they get back to the surface.
Oh, that sounds so much better than having cases of paper that you have to take underground. And if you've forgotten one piece or something like that, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And Nigel, do you use this functionality as well?
Not to any near the extent that Nelson does. So we've probably got the advantage that I won't go underground. So I've always got the sky above me, which means I've got Starlink above me as well. So we pretty much rely on Starlink to get most of it. And saying that, it's not perfect at all by any means, and it does drop out from time to time. But the ability to have the assessments open, and if you do lose that connectivity, hit save, get back within range, get back to the office, whatever, bang, they're uploaded. Exactly what Nelson was saying. This you don't have to run back somewhere and get some more paperwork and race back out there and all those sorts of things. I actually feel sorry about an RTO that works with us here at the mine, and they're still back in the paper-based days, and he carries in his big crate of paper-based assessments and starts marketing them all. And I almost feel sorry for him. to not have the ability that Nelson's got or I've got to just be able to do things quickly, smartly, and securely.
Absolutely. Do you feel like it's reduced downtime as well?
Oh, most definitely. Like the amount of time. Probably a good example of how much it does affect you or can affect you when you got big workloads. So we used to have 50 students in a classroom over a 2-week period with 300 assessments, and we would have those completed in the system and marked inside those 2 weeks. Like there's no way possible you could do that much workload in a paper-based environment and get it right, and two, get it into a system somewhere where it's actually secured. So the advantage of using systems like Cloud Assess, as far as the time, and that's why I normally sell it when I've gone to somebody else, it's one of the most easiest cost-benefit analysis you'll do in your whole entire lifetime. How long does it take to mark that many assessments paper-based? How long does it take to do that electronically? And it speaks for itself.
Awesome. I'm so pleased to hear that. Gabby, do you have any examples of having to work remotely or offline?
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting because the remote and offline environment of drilling, mining, anything like that is the reason that people stick to paper-based, that they are unaware of the offline component of an assessment software or of an LMS. So I think, the guy that Nigel was talking about who still rocks up with his crate of paper, probably they don't understand that functionality is available and what a benefit it is. So I actually think the one thing that was the main resistor is actually now the main compelling force to go digital, and the benefits, everything Nigel said, and Nelson, the time saving, the efficiencies, the time in marking, even the printing costs, the posting costs, the getting things back, all of those things just make it a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there when you called it digital, because I think a lot of people think of an LMS as only online. And so I think it's a bit of a communication piece there, that people think, oh, an LMS online. But if you call it digital, I think that probably helps explain it a bit more, in that it can be reliant upon when you're not online, for example.
Agreed,
So I think that's quite poignant. Thank you. So we've actually got a bit of a poll again, just to check in with you all. Don't know if you guys can access this slider. You can just scan that QR code. Just wondering how confident everybody is that's on this webinar today, that your current training systems would stand up to an audit tomorrow, whether that's your own internal audit or your own or your external people that would come in. How are you feeling in terms of how you could actually stand up to that? It might take a moment for people to take part. That's good. People are confident. And there's a few not sure. Awesome. Thank you for taking part in that one. Oh no, there's another person. I mean, you want to be confident if it's compliance, so you can sleep at night. So just moving on then, looking into that kind of audit confidence that we're talking about. So, for example, if you were to have an internal audit or something like that come up, what would give you the confidence that everything's up to date? Starting with you, Nigel.
It's all in one spot, and it's all version controlled. I don't even have to think about it. I can jump on the system, the latest version of the assessments there. You can see who's done what, who's did what version. If somebody's done the wrong, no one can do the wrong version if you're smart with it. All the matrices are there. everything's in one place. You just click on it and ask. And it wasn't that long ago, I actually had the regulator here doing exactly that, doing a spot audit. And the second they asked me a question, I was clicking on the box they needed to answer. And they just walked away going, yep, got nothing. Good job, see you later. Like,
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And how about you, Nelson?
Very similar to Nigel. The QA/QC capacity of Cloud Assess exceeds our needs at the moment, but I think Gabby touched on an important piece of information earlier, that the efficiency and the removing of that administrative burden, it effectively gives you more trainer assessors. You've got more productive time that trainer assessors have to go and use their skill set, and some of that can be used in the QA/QC space. So I think those combination of capability and then removing that admin burden gives you the capacity to be more confident and audit ready.
Absolutely. Gabby, do you have any examples?
Between who's compliant and who, I'm probably going to be a bit harsher than that. I think having things in one place and easy to access makes things a lot easier. But I think almost every RTO tries to be compliant. They think they're doing the right thing, and they perhaps don't understand what the right thing is. So yes, it's easy to have the answers to questions and have them there, but the ones who I find scramble don't have a consistent message and don't have a consistent understanding of how the RTO works and how the systems work, which might tie in, but I kind of see it a little differently.
Yeah. And I think also with RTOs, there's so much more than just the assessment and training piece. They also need to look at their wider workforce as well. And there's a lot of different things that keep popping up there for them. It certainly came out last week in the National Vet Conference. And so do you feel like as well with, you mentioned there that you don't even have to think about it, Nigel. So do you feel like you're actually saving time by having everything just ready to go in your system? I'm curious as to how you actually build your assessments. I know you said you built them from scratch, I think. What's your process for that?
Even though we're not an RTO, we still use National Units of Competency as the standard. So going back to my old world, you pull the standards down from AQUIS, and then you sort of build up the assessments, from there with your normal rules of evidence, performance criteria, the assessment requirement, everything else that goes on with that RTO world that I try so desperately to leave. It's no different to when we used to build a paper-based. Cloud Assess gives you the ability to really take any paper-based assessment you like and regenerate it in Cloud Assess exactly the same way if you wanted to, which is normally the fastest way to do it if you want to get going quickly. So you've still got your checklists, you've still got your sign-off boxes. As I said, I know Nelson was talking about before, you can put in buttons in there so you can take record video or take photos. All that same compliance stuff that we were, was required in the RTO from the training and assessment standpoint, not necessarily the other standards that go along with it. But it's all in the same place. So it's very quick and easy to do. It's very intuitive. It's just drag and drop boxes. If you can work Word, you can work Cloud Assess when it comes to building assessments, and you can tailor it any way you like. There's hundreds of different ways you can if you want, you can put big text boxes in there. And then when you're smart, you go on your phone, you hit the microphone, and you speak into it because it's got voice to text recognition built into it. So it's a matter of looking at what do I actually need to do, what am I assessing, what's the best way to do it, and what's the easiest way I can get to build the tools around it to make my life easier. And that's to Nelson's point earlier, the amount of time that you save gives you the ability to spend that time either becoming better as a trainer assessor, or improving the tools that you've got and the compliance that you've got, because you're not dragged down 100% of the time trying to feed your way through thousands and thousands of pieces of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Nelson, did you have any points to make on assessment design? I know I'm throwing you in on the deep end there, so I didn't prep you for that. Is it something that you cover?
Yeah, it is. So back in the paper-based system, you'd show up on a new site. A trainer assessor that was probably sick of their job and sick of admin slapped a pack of paperwork in front of you that was 10 centimeters thick, and you'd be expected to read it and answer the questions. Everybody just read the questions, scanned through the content, found the answers, and moved on. We were wasting everybody's time doing that. So it was one thing we really wanted to do better with our current organisation, was get that interactive, engaging experience for a learner. And how we do it, we try and focus on those multimodal learning techniques. So it's not just a whole bunch of written content. We use animated content, we use video content, we use photos, we use interactive school content. We have spoken content in them, all those different strategies to try and engage the learner. And then as well, we use formative and summative assessment. So it's a little bit of content and then solidify that learning with a little bit of an assessment, a little bit more content, a little bit of assessment. And then at the end, there's that summative assessment to finalize that competency. So I guess that's driven, and the ability to optimize that is that we can do it native in Cloud Assess. Like I mentioned before, when you have to go and engage a third party to design your content and manage your content and develop your content, it becomes rigid. It's another administrative burden that you've introduced to go and manipulate that or change that. So it becomes too hard, and you're stuck with this rigid product, is the inevitable outcome. Being able to do that in-house and have the time to do it in-house, that's what drives that continuous improvement space with those tools that you've got.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I know that feeling too. If you've had something designed and then you want to make changes to it, it's so much harder if you can't just do it yourself and get back in there. So that's awesome. I'm really pleased that's working for you. And so just a final sort of wrap up here. I feel like I may have actually just missed a question, actually. Sorry. In terms of change management, just wondering, I know we've sort of touched on this a little bit, so maybe we could probably skip it. Just wondering if there's any lessons that you could share in terms of how to get people on board quickly with a new system or a new way of working. Gabby, do you have any insights on that?
Yep, sure do. A couple of our members needed very quick ramp-ups using Cloud Assess. One was Department of Fire and Emergency Services in WA, and they followed the system of essentially converting their existing assessments straight into Cloud Assess as an initial step. And they did it, it was in a very, very short time frame, like about 3 weeks, and they did it for individual assessments. As each assessment was sort of went live, then assessors were using those in the field. So that was one way to do it. And they sort of, even before the whole course was built, they just got the assessments in. When McDonald's did it, they went course by course. So they had a predominant Cert 3 in retail that, and they had it broken into kind of modules of units of sort of clusters of units of competency. So they set the modules going one at a time and brought those across. So both resulted in a very, very quick transformation for assessments. And then they built in the other things as the system developed and as they had time to get the developers in. So it was I think key to it was the communication that was involved in saying, if you're up to this stage in your, and this was for both organisations, if you're up to this stage in your training and assessment journey, then these are the things that will be happening, and you will be undergoing assessments in this new format progressively from this point. So both were very successful. Both are still using it and have vastly expanded the ways in which they are using Cloud Assess to manage their assessments and conduct their assessments.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So that kind of bite-sized approach seems to work quite well. Nigel, is that how you set Cloud Assess up or implemented? Actually, you mentioned it was quite quick because you knew what you were doing. Is that right?
With the mine, certainly. It was rather quick. When I first started using Cloud Assess many years ago, actually Gabby's story there, but both ways. So when we first started using it, it was very quickly just get the assessments up there, get that going, because that was the main part we wanted it for. But when we transitioned the school from being traditional paper-based to e-learning and electronic, we actually went back and did exactly what McDonald's did, and we built one module at a time, or one cluster of units at a time, built around the way we had the courses structured, and just released them one at a time. So similar to what Mac is in Gabby's story there. So the two methods are very, very sound methods of doing it. So we did both. Both worked very, very well and rolled it out. So the one big thing there that I would say is buy-in. Like, you've got to have buy-in from your customer for them to come on that journey, because if they're pushing back from day one, you'll never win the fight. You've got to get that buy-in to make that transition.
Absolutely. And Nelson, did you have any other story to tell on this part?
Just a little bit. I think both what Nigel and Gabby said, it's compartmentalising your organisation into those small bite-sized chunks and determining who to go first. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes along the way, and trying to make those mistakes in a low-risk environment is beneficial. So whether it's a pilot trial in a test environment, and then choose a cohort of learners or competencies where, look, if there is mistakes, we can rectify those states and it isn't hugely problematic. Choosing an underground workforce to try and rectify those mistakes is hard. But you might choose a tech services workforce, or you might choose an administrative workforce to start this with. Whereas if we make a mistake, it's easy to grab them, rectify the mistake, and then move on. So considering that risk of error is probably something worth doing as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing and giving that advice. So we just have a word cloud. If you just scan the QR code and type in what you think the future of training safety looks like, and whilst that may or may not be contributed to, I just had a few questions to you guys on the panel. Looking ahead, what do you think is next for safety training and compliance in your world? Do you see AI or automation playing a bigger role? If we could start with you, Nelson.
Yeah, Nigel said the word briefly earlier, is gamification. So I think that's key, and it's going to be engaging for the future. How we achieve that, whether it's AI, human-generated content, however we achieve that content, I don't know, but I think gamification is, the key to engagement moving forward.
Absolutely. Although people aren't joining in here. Nigel, do you have any thoughts on the future?
2 words: virtual reality. We're going to see it more and more and more and more. So whether it's virtual reality or augmented reality, both those systems are going to become more prominent as the technology is ever evolving. I use VR in my private life with a hobby of mine, but it's getting to a point now where there's not much we can't recreate in the virtual world. And for anyone that's ever tried or hasn't tried virtual reality, your brain doesn't know. Like, you will feel fear. You will fear. You go through a range of emotions that you would normally. So things like safety training, being able to put somebody, and I had a customer come to me with this problem and ask for a solution for it, because they wanted to teach firefighter training, but they wanted to actually fight the fire without actually burning something down. And there's already systems out there where you can do fire training under virtual reality. So they're using fire extinguishers, the fire's there in front of them. You can introduce heat through other means. I think the more we get further down, I think the more that systems or that technology is going to come into play.
Absolutely, definitely. I think that one of the things that comes out a lot of the time in your kind of industries is you don't want to be like smashing or having a crash or something like that. So virtual reality would definitely be something that would come in useful there. And Gabby, do you see anything for the future?
Oh, look, I do see VR, but I'm really hoping to retire before I have to use it to that extent. In terms of compliance, hopefully in 2027, we'll have every regulator using the same set of RTO standards, which will be lovely. And I'm kind of hoping that they leave us alone for a while. Like the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years in RTO land has been just filled with change all over the place. There's still a change to come with VDS coming through starting from supposedly mid next year. So in terms of compliance as an RTO, it would be really lovely to just allow RTOs to become familiar with the new standards, to work to the new standards, and really focus on supporting students to achieve great outcomes.
Absolutely. I think that's solid. So just to wrap up, I've had a message from Miles. I don't think there's anything particularly in the chat here, but just to think about the key takeaways in that we need to simplify training with flexible, fit-for-purpose software, make training possible everywhere, even offline, create live visibility of workforce skills, make compliance part of the culture, and lead change through small, visible wins. So there's some really good takeaways. So just having a quick look to see if there's any questions in here. I haven't had anything come through from Miles, so I might just let us wrap up, and if there are any questions, I can always get back to people via email afterwards. Of course, there's always the chance to win an iPad on one of our webinars, and we're actually drawing that soon. So if you'd like to, you'll get these slides, you can scan that. And also you can access your certificate via this QR code here. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you, Nelson, Nigel, and Gabby, for sharing your experiences today. If you'd like to learn more about Cloud Assess and how we support safety critical industries, please get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to help out. And I wish everybody a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks, everyone.